Hello and welcome to my August 2018 Patreon Q&A video. Yeah. So the 24-hour movie marathon happened and it's just consumed most of my video making time over the past few months. So there haven't been any Q&A videos, and I asked for questions for the August Q&A. And here we are near the end of October. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the questions that I got over that period, and I'm going to split them up over 3 Q&A installments just for my own personal stupid OCD, where I want to have one for every month of the year. So there won't be as many questions answered in each video, but then I'll be kind of caught up. And then if any of my Patreon supporters have any more questions, then we can do a big bonanza in November and have a much bulkier Q&A video. But as for now, we're going to dive right in with a couple of questions from 2 of my Patreon supporters. The first is Scott, and he says, Luke, what town did you grow up in? Do you have any favorite films set there or in that area? I grew up in Penarth, South Wales, a small town outside of Cardiff. Spent most of my childhood there, though I kind of split it up and moved to England when I was 8, I think. Yes, 1996, I was 8. And then I went back to Penarth in 2001 when I was 13, I think. Yes, 13. Almost 13. Just turned 13. Anyway, so Penarth for me is my hometown. That's kind of the place I'll always see as home, even though I don't live there anymore. And I don't have any... There's no films set in Penarth that I'm aware of. But there have been films that have been shot in Penarth. In fact, if I can briefly, without knocking the microphone off its stand, bear with me for just a second. I can pull this film off the shelf and show you it. It's called Submarine. This is a film by Richard Ayoade, who is a British comedian and filmmaker and writer, and he made this film in 2010, I believe. Yes, and stars Craig Roberts, a Welsh actor. I mean, most of the cast are Welsh. It's a very good cast indeed. I think Sally Hawkins is even in this, who is one of my favourite actresses. Yes, she appears in the film as the mother of the main character, not that she has a big part or anything. And I believe the film is set in Swansea. It's been many years since I saw it, but I love this film so much. It's a great kind of, you could almost give it, maybe, without trying to tar it with this brush, a little bit of a Wes Anderson-y kind of feel to it. A bit of a quirky kind of filled, humor film. That was one of the worst sentences I think I've ever come out with in a video. I'll leave it in for free as always, but let me think. It has that kind of quirky sense of humor to it that Wes Anderson's films often have, and it's just there's an offbeat flavor to it that's really interesting and enjoyable. I need to see it again, actually. It's been a very long time since I last saw it. In fact, the last time I watched it, I stayed up till like 6 o'clock in the morning. I was working the next day, so probably not the best time to appreciate it as much as I could have either. But as it is, Submarine is a film that I really enjoy, and parts of it were shot in my hometown of Penarth, and I made a video about it many years ago, actually showing some of the locations, I think. But yeah, no films, I believe, set in Penarth, but certainly some films have had scenes shot there. I know some bits of Gavin and Stacey were shot in my hometown as well, which is a UK comedy series. So that's that for that question, I think. So thank you, Scott, for the question. Aaron Pennington asks, favorite movie theater snack and drink? I have many. I am very much a snacker when it comes to the cinema. I know people have very differing opinions on that. I know people are very against people who eat in the cinema, and I understand that, but I'm always a considerate snacker in cinemas. And I feel like I've kind of covered this so much in the recent past in videos, so I won't go into it too much, but I am the kind of person who will wait with his hand like this above a bag of crisps for 5 minutes, waiting for the time to put my hand in, because I don't want to disturb anyone around me. whereas 99% of the movie-going public couldn't give two fucks about that, and they will rustle it in your face. They have no self-control as far as gorging themselves on all these snacks, and they will just do it no matter what's happening on screen, whether it's a quiet emotional scene or not. Who cares? The movie's called A Quiet Place. It says quiet in the title. They're going to make as much noise as they possibly can anyway, because for them, that's their time to eat. But I get it. You know, I do enjoy eating snacks in the cinema. Some of my favorite snacks, I love my atomic fireballs. They're very hot, spicy, cinnamon-flavored hard candies. I like having crisps. In fact, my Doritos Chili Heat Wave obsession has lasted for almost decades now. Ever since that flavor came out, I love that crisp. And at some point in 2011, they came out with this black bag of Doritos, and it was like fiery hot or something like that. I've never been able to find it since, and I just remember loving it. Like, that was one of my favorites, and they either discontinued it, and they've done new ones since, like barbecue rib and like the roulette flavor, where like one side is spicy hot and the other isn't, something like that, and it just never captures the feeling of that black bag that was released in 2012. It might have been, actually, because I remember going to see the film Real Steel with the bag, and it was incredible. As for drinks, I'm partial to Dr. Pepper and Vanilla Coke. Those are my two favorites. And I would also say they have I think they call it like a Tango Ice Blast now, but like basically just the kind of blueberry and cherry mixed Slush Puppy Deluxe. That's kind of my that's also fizzy as well. That's another favorite as far as snacks and drinks go in the cinema. Aaron also asks, do you think that Kylo Ren can redeem himself in Episode 9, or even should be redeemed? Now, this is something where, and I can see the light is just absolutely fading. You know, it's just one of those things where it gets to like 5 o'clock, and it's now starting to get dark, so I'm going to have to turn the light on, and you'll have to deal with even more uneven lighting. In fact, oh, look at that. It's just like a... Awful. Hopefully it'll correct itself in due course. Let's see if we can kind of get the camera to slowly adjust back to normal. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. We'll have a look at the white balance. That's not possible. I'm going to have to turn the camera off. Fantastic. And we're back in the room, and it still looks very weird. Who cares? We're just going to roll with it. I mean, you're not here to look at my face anyway. So, Kylo Ren, Episode 9, should he be redeemed? I want to make a separate video on this, but I think I can go into it for this video for the purposes of elongating these 3 mini Q&As. But for me, I don't want to see Kylo Ren fully redeemed. And I know even the makers of the movies have said, you know, Star Wars is all about redemption. Look at Return of the Jedi. It's difficult and different, though, because with Anakin Skywalker, with Darth Vader, you have a character who did unspeakable, things, just committed absolute horrific crimes. And at the end of Return of the Jedi, he did the right thing. He saved his son's life. He brought balance to the Force, or so we thought. And it was a really nice moment, but he paid for that sacrifice with his life, and so it works. And, it's one of those things where, because there was nothing after that, we didn't really have to deal with a world in which Anakin would perhaps be put on a pedestal. We didn't have to deal with that story-wise. And I guess we won't have to with Episode 9 either, because I would assume they will not continue beyond this film. But again, you see a character in Kylo Ren who was given a choice to not kill his father, to come back to the light side, and he chose to murder Han Solo, his father, and to commit himself fully to the dark side. And at the end of The Last Jedi, he fully committed himself to killing his uncle, to killing Luke Skywalker. He pulled back from killing his mother, but, and certainly this is a character who is absolutely riddled with conflict. And, this isn't a cold-blooded killer. You see in every single inch of his face, you see conflict and you see emotion, which we never saw in Darth Vader. So it's completely different. But I think that he's gone so far now that he can never truly be fully redeemed. You know, this idea, this fantasy to me, where people want him to kind of turn back to the light, to be a good person, to kind of fall in love with Rey, and they go off happily ever after. It's just a very uncomfortable idea to me. I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people want that romance. They want those two to kind of have a happily ever after. For me, it just is weird. I don't see it, you know. Even if she can see into his mind and she can see that there is good within him, that she can see that, you know, he was guided by the dark side, he still did those things. He still made those choices. So I think he should be redeemed, quasi-redeemed, in the sense that he does the right thing in the end, but he has to either live with his choices and not be kind of seen a hero at the end, or, you know, pay for it with his life. Now, I don't really think it would be the best ending if he does the right thing at the end and then dies, just like Anakin, just like Vader, because then you're really retreading stuff. So I think it would be good to see him make an attempt to redeem himself, to go as far as he possibly can in redeeming himself at the end, but having to walk away, or maybe go into imprisonment. I don't know. Who knows where they'll go with this, but for me, I don't think a full redemption is really possible as far as my own tastes are concerned. If they were to go that direction, I'd be quite disappointed. But then again, you know, it depends how they do it. And it is fantasy. It is a fairy tale. You know, we don't have to stick so closely to the morals of reality, but for me, I think that they've done such a great job in these first two films in the sequel trilogy that they need to bring it home with a story and a conclusion that makes sense to the character that has been built up over the past, you know, 4.5 hours of film. So that's my thoughts on it, and I think, you know, you could really dive deep into that topic, but for me, that's kind of the broad strokes of how I feel about Kylo Ren and if he should be redeemed. Aaron finally asks, do you think Rick Deckard in Blade Runner is a replicant? And we'll end on this one. It's interesting, actually, and I don't really plug these videos too often, but I make videos every month on joblo.com on their original videos channel, Joblo Videos. I've been doing this for many years, and I had the great pleasure to make 2 videos now on the Blade Runner series, and that was part of the series I run called Movie Endings Explained. Now, I get into a lot of discussions with people about this because they talk about how this isn't a movie that should be explained, or it's you know, it's not complicated, it doesn't need to be explained. You know, it's just a catchy kind of title to make people look at it, you know, Movie Endings Explained. But I never really like to kind of say this is what this movie means at the end, and that's the way you should see it, because that's just very boxed in and kind of, you know, one note. So I like to explore different possibilities, you know, but then it's not as catchy. Movie endings explored through many possibilities, you know, not as catchy, not as kind of grabbing to the eye. So I made 2 videos on Blade Runner, and recently Blade Runner 2049. And my conclusion in both videos, because I think both films deal with the central mystery of whether or not Rick Deckard is really a replicant in those movies, I think there's only really one answer that most people should be able to agree on, and that's maybe. I think that there is valid arguments for both in terms of clues that are in the film and in terms of how it impacts the story. You know, does it make it more interesting if Deckard was a replicant all along, and that the person he was hunting in the first movie was more human than he was, but ultimately they're both man-made? Or is it, you know, even more of a kind of cruel twist of irony that he is human and this non-human is more human than he is? I think both make for compelling sides of the story, and I don't think I really ever watch either of those 2 films, which I love so much, thinking in my head, he's definitely a replicant. But I don't watch them thinking he's definitely not a replicant. I really like to have it hanging in kind of a weird kind of perpetual balance of not really knowing and not really caring, to the point where I need to kind of figure it out for myself and settle on one side of the fence. So I think that anyone who has a different opinion of it is kind of right in their own way. Whatever makes you enjoy it more, I think. And it's just funny how Ridley Scott is like, he's a replicant. If you don't get it, there's something wrong with you. You're stupid. Whereas Harrison Ford is like, well, no, that's not how I see it. You know, so I like that. That's a fun kind of thing that even the creator and the or at least the guy who directed the movie. Not that he created the entire story, because he didn't write the script or the original source material. But the people involved in the making of the movie, who are very key in terms of director, lead star, have very different opinions of it, which is really cool. But yeah, for me, it's maybe. That's kind of that's where I fall on it. So yeah, that's my fairly concisely summed up feelings on that aspect of Blade Runner, and I think Blade Runner 2049. I love that they left it up for debate in 2049. They didn't try to shoehorn in an answer, and Denis Villeneuve actually said that was something he really wanted to leave open. So I greatly appreciate that, and I think that it just makes the story better for it to not really spell it out, because that way everyone wins. Either opinion is valid and works within the context of both those stories, I think, which is really cool. So there we go. That was my, August Q&A, and I'll see you very shortly. I'll be posting these fairly quickly in quick succession. I'll see you with my September Q&A video. So thanks for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and to the guys who sent in questions, and I'll see you in the next video.
He's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.